Good morning, and a very warm welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen, across the world, wherever it is that you may be. We're coming to you live from Djuma in the Sabi Sands. My name is Steve Falconbridge, joined on camera by Sebastian Rombi, and we have found in the early dawn a small herd of zebra and wildebeest just grazing in the open. How marvelous is that? It's a nice cool 17 degrees Celsius, 62 degrees Fahrenheit. There is not a cloud in the sky, not a breath of wind whatsoever. On exiting camp, we just drove around to one of the staff villages to pick up the drone, which Seb likes to use, and we found some leopard tracks. And listening on the radio, the landowner was with that leopard last night, and he walked straight in to Vulture camp. So we're going to go back around from this side and see if we might be able to find whoever it is that might be, because it's unlikely it was Hukumuri then. James is heading in that direction towards the west to go and follow up on Hukumuri from last night. And please don't forget to send through your questions. Hashtag Safari Live or follow us on the YouTube stream. Let us know what you'd like to see this morning and how everything is going wherever you may be. On that note, we're going to move around from here and let's go over to James Hendry, who'd like to say hello.
Good morning. It's marvellous to have you with us here on the Sunrise Safari. It is cold today. I'm told that it is 18 degrees Celsius and 64 degrees Fahrenheit. That is utter garbage. It's nowhere close to that temperature. I'm putting it at the maximum of 1458. Somewhere around there. Anyway, our plan today is to head up towards the northern boundary, see if we can't pick up on Hukumuri, but I have to tell you that I'm pretty sure you lot are all getting fairly tired of us saying we're going to look for leopards all the time, and so I'm just going to quietly get about that and we'll see what else we can find on the way. There were lions calling during the night, so that's quite exciting. We'll see if we can find them, and basically that is the plan. David is on camera today. There is his thumb. You can see he's wearing gloves because it's cold now, and also because it looks cool. And you can ask us any questions you like, of course, on the hashtag Safari Live or the chat stream on YouTube. I think that is all that I have to tell you of any great housekeeping importance today, other than to tell you, no, that's all. I was going to try and be funny about other housekeeping stuff and realised that I wasn't going to be funny at all. I was just going to be awkward. I think that Taxon has found some further tracks, so I shall find out from him what's going on. In the meantime, I go across to the highly excitable Ralph Kirsten and find out what he's doing.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome aboard. Well, welcome out on foot here on the bushwalk, out in Djuma, out in the Kruger, Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa. It is Freedom Day today. Back on the 27th of April 1994 was the day when we had the first democratic election in South Africa. Now, my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera we've got Senzo. Morning, Senzo. Now, everybody, I think this morning we're going to be heading out into the area where Thandi and the cub has been hanging out. I know James has just said that we may be a little bit sick of finding leopards or looking for leopards, but I never get sick of it anyway. But we're going to be heading in that direction, not to say that we're going to find her or the cub, but you know how the bushwalk goes. Everything in between is going to be looked at, is going to be studied, is going to be trying to be interpreted as well, and we're also going to be thinking about the freedom that we have, not only in South Africa, but to be able to walk out in this wonderful wilderness that we have here on Djuma, on this beautiful concession. So, lovely start to the morning. The sun is just coming up. It still hasn't creeped over the horizon just yet, so the colors are coming through, and I think maybe Senzo will be able to just get that golden glow that's starting to come over the horizon now. So, as we head down now towards Vulture Dam, and with this golden glow, I want to head you on over to Steve with some beautiful animals and with those beautiful colours.
Yes, indeed, very beautiful animals, and you can see that that young male is very interested in that young female. Well, I'm guessing it's a young female. He's tried to mount her at least 3 times already. And the youngster on the left was only born in December, so I doubt it's ready for mating, but maybe there's some dominance behavior coming about amongst them. The ox pickers up nice and early this morning, making lots of noise as they feed on their breakfast of ticks. Beautiful morning for some zebra and wildebeest in the open here. Some lying down, some moving about. I think they heard the lions calling from very far south from here. I just heard a report of some lion tracks not far from where we are. We're going to see if we can move into that area after we check Vulture Dam, because male leopard tracks came across this area and then went straight down towards the dam. So we're going to go in that area, see if we can find any tracks. The one leopard who likes to do that, we know, is the little chief Osana. Not that I can assume it could be anybody. But the zebras and wildebeest are looking rather relaxed. Good and interesting. Zebras do make a bit of a... My lips are a bit cold this morning to do it. So they do a bit of a in their movements and their daily gesturing. And it's definitely some form of communication between them. I have no idea what they're saying, but I'm sure it's all good things. And he's found himself a little something to scratch. Oh yes, that's the nice marula tree. Ticks underneath the elbow, underneath the shoulder. Very nice to get. Oh, look how he's enjoying that. The ears are back. Oh yes. Found a nice spot now for the head. Lots of rubbing posts in and around here. The animals like to find and rub themselves on, and quite often find it detached ticks or even patches of fur that get stuck in the wood. But just like horses, zebras love to be scratched. Love to scratch their back in the sand and love to rub themselves up and down against things. I think it's just you, Bex. It's a big animal there. Big zebra who just had a yawn. Big male stallion. I think he's just a big boy, so his mohawk or mane is looking a little bit shorter than the others, but I think he's grown into his. But I'm not sure. Maybe he's lost a bit with age. Sarah, they do. Zebras do alarm call. Let me find it for you, because I'm not going to attempt this for you right now, because I can't do it very well with my own mouth, but I will find you the zebra. Okay, are you ready for it? Here it comes. That is the zebra alarm call. A very interesting sound in the African wilderness. And as all these animals slowly move off in one direction, we are going to depart the scene and see if we can follow up on any fresh activity and signs down by Vulture Dam. So jump on board. The sun is going to crest the horizon in the next few minutes. Let's see if we can find some fresh tracks before that happens. So we had the tracks just over here, and apparently the cat turned down into the staff village there. So I'm going to come around this side and check. Maybe he came around onto the dam itself. It's very likely. James has gone around the other side that way, so if the tracks do come out that side, I've no doubt he will find some activity. Do you see a buffalo? Seb thought he saw buffalo, but I think what he saw was the nests of some red-billed buffalo weavers. So he wasn't 100% wrong. Ooh, look at that beautiful male bushbuck. We don't see too many of the male bushbuck around. There we go. Let me just try get him in the gap here. How's that, Seb?
Yeah.
Look at him. What a beautiful specimen. Related to the nyalas and the kudu, but you can see he lacks the stripes on the body, and he is fully grown. I'm going to roll forward. Eclair, there are lots of duiker around. The duiker like this thick vegetation that we have. They're just not very easily seen. We see a lot more duiker than we show you on the screen, but they just disappear. As soon as we frame them, they disappear. Steenbok like more sort of open areas with sporadic touches of bush, but all the other animals are essentially more gregarious, whereas you find duiker and steenbok are solitary or monogamous pairs. So there would only be one or two in a small area, whereas impala, zebra, wildebeest occur in large numbers, so, and obviously a lot bigger. But the duiker's design is to help it get camouflaged and to disappear in the thick bush, just like this bushbuck is almost quite invisible there. Munching away. This is it's a favorite food source of the leopard, and it's possible that duiker and bushbuck fall prey more to leopard than larger animals do. The impala doesn't seem to dent their numbers. Their breeding strategy and their life cycles allow them to accumulate in large numbers, even with a high predator abundance. And there it goes, just like that. The namesake, the bushbuck, disappears behind the bushes. So that sun is only moments from the horizon. Okay, well, it seems as Ralph has also framed up the sunrise, so let's go to him and see if he's got a better vantage point.
Yes, everyone, so we're still heading down here. We're right next to Vulture Dam, and wow, what a pretty morning it is turning out to be. It's rather cool this morning, I tell you. I've just left my jersey back at camp, but I'm sure in about an hour or so time we're going to be quite hot. Now, we're just coming through here. I think we're going to probably pop down just below the back end or the dam wall side of Vulture Dam. So we'll quickly pop across the road here. We've just had some tracks of hukumuri, which is one of the big male leopards that is moving through the area. And he's also headed in the direction of where Thandi and the cub are. So we'll follow up, see about him. But I've been chatting to Rexon, who is our tracker, and he says that hukumuri is not a very good leopard to track on foot, because he always runs when he spots humans walking towards him. So he's not a great animal to try and catch up with. So our target would be for now still Thandi and cub, but we'll see how that goes. As I say, that's just a little bit of a goal that we've got on the walk, but nonetheless we'll still pick up on everything that we find along the way. And it's great in this first light of the morning. We don't walk out in the dark when we're on bushwalk, because it's not really that safe. You need to be able to see where you're going. And also with the predators, obviously they're different beasts in the dark. Lions especially, so we don't want to be bumping into them when it's dark. And that's why we do wait just a little bit longer than the game drives or the guys out on the vehicles do for when we get out there. So we're coming down here just into this little wash. Ooh, here's a nice tambuti tree. Just a reminder, if any of you don't know what a tambuti tree is, it's a very distinguishable tree. We've got very simple leaves, and if we break off a leaf, it is very indicative. That lovely white milky latex that comes out there, it actually is quite toxic. It's not going to kill you, but what the guys used to use this for is if you've got toothache, you can actually take that latex and put it on where the area where it is. It actually numbs the area, and a very good insect repellent, especially if you want to get rid of fish moths or anything that's living in your cupboard. You can take a branch of the tamboti and put it, just a nice clipping, and put it underneath your clothes, and that'll keep all the fish moths out. So, very impressive little plant this. We often find it down near the riverine areas, so you'll find it next to the banks of where you have nice river areas. And there's a little spider there, seems to say. Tiny little fella there. He's just disappeared up the back. Where's he gone? He disappeared. Oh well. So, that's lovely vegetation that we start coming through, riverine vegetation, eh? Always changing. Okay, so we're going to try and pick up on some more tracks of these wonderful cats, see what else we can find. Maybe we'll even get a good chance of finding some more clues about where these hyenas are hanging out. So while we take those tracks, let's head on over to James. I think he's also doing the same, but by vehicle.
No, he's not. He's just sort of driving around, hopelessly not finding any heartbeats. The only heartbeat we've seen so far was an Impala and his wives, and he was being deeply unpleasant to all 5 of them, chasing them around. David, there's a duiker. Quickly. Might be the only thing we see all day. Oh, look at that. The grey duiker. With its sharp horns. It will spike you if you attack him. No, 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 stay there. Don't go anywhere. No, no, no. They're quite skittish things, these. There he goes. You don't often get them on camera like this. I've sometimes told the story of how they are of how they might look like sweet little antelope, but a friend of mine who was a game capture expert said one of the most dangerous experiences he ever had was with a duiker in a pen, or a little boma, and he took his wife in to have a look at this thing. I'm not sure why. She thankfully was carrying a handbag with her. And the duiker set upon them. It attacked them, and the first thing it hit was his shins, and he said that was astonishingly painful. But then it just kept coming, and I think it was a female, so I don't think it had the horns, thankfully, but a bit bigger than that one, because the female's a bit larger than the males. And he had to take his wife's handbag, thankfully in the days before cell phones, because I should have been very upset if he'd destroyed her smartphone. And he then set at the duiker with his handbag. There's a kudu and some nyala, a mixed herd. Anyway, he apparently he spent 15 minutes bashing this thing off because it had cornered them away from the gate, and it took 15 minutes of beating with the handbag. It must have been a very high quality handbag in order to get out. See how amazed the nyala are by that sighting, or by that story. They're thinking to themselves, well, we won't tangle with that fellow just down the road. On the subject of game capture, I've been involved in a nyala game capture before, and it's it's very traumatic for them, obviously, as you'd expect it to be. But what happens is that you spread this net out, this enormous plastic, or must be plastic nylon net, sort of over a front of must have been about 1 kilometer, maybe a mile even, so 1.5 kilometers. And then you all drive around to the back end of an area and spread out in an arc, and then beat. So you clap and shout and make a big noise, hit pots and pans together if you have them. Well, no, you don't really do that. Nobody takes pots and pans to Nyala capture. And eventually these things run, and they get caught in this net and tangled up. And then the big thing to do very quickly, the vet runs along, he's waiting at the base of the net, and he runs along with a syringe full of sedative, and he just java, that's the word we use out here, he javas them in the bottom, and slowly they all go to sleep. Or do they go to sleep? Yeah, they do. They go to sleep, and then you pick them up, put them in a truck, and take them away. And that was at Pinda, which has the largest privately owned herd of Nyala in the whole world. Now, not everything out here is just waking up. Some things are going to sleep.
Yes, well, this is a small crepuscular raptor that will spend the dawn and dusk most active. And I wonder how many of you folks out there who love your birds can tell us which bird this is. There's one of two species, and it is easy to confuse them with the other one. So quickly, hashtag Safari Live, let me know what bird this is. It is a crepuscular little raptor with very big eyes and very big feet. I wonder if anyone's awake out there. Only 21 centimeters. The sexes are very similar. Primarily eats insects, but also will take small birds, lizards and frogs. And I will play the call for you, and let's see how it responds to the call. While we wait for you to let us know, let's see if it will respond. You want to stay a little bit tight on it, Seb, when I call. Tim, I'm going to tell you that you are incorrect with your assumption. I'm not going to say what you said, otherwise everyone's going to get the game. I'll explain why it is what it is. And what you can see is it's got the spots on the chest. No, painted wolf is not a spotted Cape owl. It's a very small owl, and you can see it's turned its head completely around, and you can't see the two spots on the back of the head. They are not visible, and it's almost got rings around the face, or bars around the face, and there on the chin. Julia, it's not a spotted owl, unfortunately. And it's not a pearl-spotted owlet. I wonder who's going to guess it. Here, I'm going to play it for you now. Shucks, you have got it 100%. This is indeed an African barred owlet. If you look closely at it, it's got the barring on the chest, but then those sort of flecks on the belly, and it comes around sort of the head in like sort of circular motions, those bars, where the pearl-spotted owlets, a lot of people confuse it with them, has got little spots on their head. I can show you the similarity between the two. But oh my word, what just happened there? But it is easily confused. I had it all and then I pushed the wrong button. I do apologize. Okay, here we go. Now, if we have a look at these two birds here, the African barred owlet is on the left, the barring on the chest with the spots, whereas the pearl spotted has got spots on the crown rather than concentric circles. Let me show you an actual photo. The photo is much easier to see. Oopsie. photos are much easier to see. You see the spots on the head on the right, and you see the circles on the head on the left. And when the pearl-spotted owlet turns around, he's got two beautiful spots on the back of the head. Eyes in the back of the head, we say, and that is a defense mechanism, assuming something is looking at something, so it's kind of protecting it against being snuck up on from behind. But well done, Shucks, for getting that correct. And indeed, a nice crepuscular species that is probably still hunting as we speak and will be active until it gets too warm. And they kind of eliminate the competition with larger owls by doing that. Chitty chatty Meg, not all birds can turn their necks like that. It is quite a unique feature in owls, which means they can sit in one spot and they can turn all the way around and listen. It's mainly for listening in the darkness. They don't rely on their eyes as much as their hearing, even though their eyes are very, very useful. They cannot see in pitch blackness, but they can hear. And the purpose is you all see owls have got that sort of a facial disc, and their ears are in different sort of hemispheres of their head. So when sound comes towards them, it comes off that facial disc at a different speed, hitting each ear in a different sort of direction and speed, and they can triangulate the movement of something on the ground to precision accuracy. So we often see owls with these little tufts on their head. Those are not in fact ears, they are called ear tufts, and their main purpose is actually mate recognition rather than actually ears, because those aren't ears. The ears are down on the side of the head at different sort of levels. Okay, so we continued on around from the dam. We bumped into the bushwalk team, and we heard that the tracks of male leopard were sort of further more west. So we've moved on, leaving others to work on those tracks, and let's go back up to Ralph, who's on ground level on bushwalk.
Yes, everyone, and thanks you, Steve. Well, once again, I'm getting my knees dirty and getting my face down next to the mud, because it's always very interesting what's going on in this little puddle here. You see all these little dots? They're leaving a fine trail of what's been going on. Now that one there, just in front of my stick, is giving us a clue of a little creature that has got tiny little toes, and he's been jumping through here. But I'm a little bit confused, because normally we'd say swallows or little wasps, they're going to be the ones collecting this kind of mud, and I thought it was collecting mud initially, but actually, now that I look closer, it's actually just indentations. This is a tiny little mouse that has been jumping through here, and he's left lovely little claw marks there. Over here as well, there's also some claw marks there, and I think over there in the middle is just where he sank in a little bit. So he's been jumping through here, he's come in over here on the side, and he's been jumping around here. I wonder, he was probably after some water, but it's all mud. So he maybe just sank in a little bit. And I think over on the side here is where there was a bit of a bigger one maybe, and it's been jumping. And you can see actually there, that drag mark there, is where the little tail was dragging through the mud. That's very interesting. Wow. Yeah, as I say, I would have initially thought that it's either swallows or wasps, but now that I look closely, I think a little mouse was jumping through here. So that's pretty cool. So that's one little pan. As I say, we always have a look next to the pans, because the little animals need to come down and drink. And we're obviously on the trail of, we were going in the direction of Thandi and Cub. But while we've been doing that, we've got some information that there were some male lions in the area. So we're actually heading in that direction, a little bit back towards where we came from, to see if we can pick up on those male lion tracks. But coming past a little pan like this, you always have to stop and check. Maybe the lions, leopards, anything has come in for a drink. We've got lots of warthog tracks here. Very sort of square-looking track to it with the 2 toes. Lots of warthog there. A couple of bird tracks that have also come down, coming for a drink. That one looks possibly like something like a hardy-dar ibis, something like that. Over here, we've got a passerine with that 3 toes forward, 1 toe back, which means it's a perching bird. So it's got that back claw to enable it to be able to grab onto a branch. So that's a medium-sized passerine. That could maybe be a dove or anything like that. And as we move around here, some elephant dung. See how much activity there is around a little waterhole. And, well, we've been looking at some signs of elephant, and it seems let's head on over to James for the real deal.
The real deal indeed. We've got some elephants, everybody. There they are. We haven't seen many of these, and in fact this is David's first elephant since his return from leave. When was that, David? Good 2 weeks ago. Good grief. Very nice. There's a tiny little baby in here we'll try and get you a look at. While we go forward, let me remind you that the 27th of April, which is of course today, Freedom Day in South Africa, day of our first elections in 1994. There we go. The little one is just in here somewhere. But it is also the birthday of Wild Earth. It's very nice of the government to give us a public holiday on our birthday. Obviously, that's not why we have a public holiday now. And even more interesting, as of this morning, we had 999,998 subscribers to our YouTube channel. I then subscribed immediately, having realized that I wasn't a subscriber. So we had 999,999 as of about, 20 minutes ago. We must be at 100,000. That was our goal for our birthday today. So hopefully, if that isn't there, please somebody make up an email address and subscribe immediately. We will, of course, be putting out a superb piece of cinematographic art by Eggsy, Kirsten and David a little bit later, starring the entire Wild Earth crew, including the magnificent people that make up the Dive Live crew. A little bit later, you'll have that to look forward to. Now that little elephant is so small that you can't even see him. There he comes. See, look how tiny he is. Mr. Public, good morning. I hope that you are one of the 999,999 subscribers that we have. None of the elephants are resident here. No elephant is resident anywhere, really. Elephants live in home ranges, so this little herd here will move huge distances, probably, I would say, an area of about 20,000 hectares or so, maybe even more, 30,000 hectares, which is about 60 to 70,000 acres, no, at least 70,000 acres. And they'll just wander around in that, depending on where the food is good and where it's bad, and where the water is. And this little herd looks to be only 3 of them: young mother, little baby, and a slightly bigger baby. Let's go up this little track here. I think that's where they're heading. And see if we can't get another picture of them. Let's go back a bit. What we don't want to do, it's quite thick in here, and I don't want to go and make a big bashing noise. So if they're heading towards a road, it's better to try and sort of go with them along a road. Oh, they're changing direction slightly. No, let's go back along the road we were originally on. Apologies for my indecision, but it's not my fault. The elephants are being indecisive. So the whole subject of where elephants are and why they are in certain places and not in others is very difficult to understand, really, because of course you will find lots of them around every corner some days, and then you won't find them for weeks. We're not really sure why that is the case, other than to say they are I guess, spreading the impact that they have. I'm not sure that that's necessarily conscious. That thing is very small. He's a little boy. We saw that. He showed that to us as he walked across the road in front of us just before you saw us. He's just staying close to his mother's tail. I would put her at about 20 years, no more than that, maybe even less. And I'd put that little thing at just under a year, maybe a year old. I can hear a few more down the road in front of us, so maybe they're just stragglers of a larger herd. Oh yes, there are quite a few more I can see now. Let's move a little bit further down the road. Now, Russell, I think as with all things in life, you will find that practice really does improve things, or you improve your skills, and I imagine that it's no different with animals. So the more practice an elephant mother has at being a mother, I imagine the better she will get at it. The more adept she will be at suckling, certainly, at keeping her calf safe, keeping her calf in the middle of the herd. Certainly it's definitely the case with human beings. First-time mothers and fathers tend to be all of a twitter and a panic, especially in Western society, where they're sort of sent home from the hospital with this mewling infant and suddenly realize they really don't have the skills, or they don't feel like they have the skills to look after it. And then by the time the second or third one comes along, well, they're old hands at it. And I'm sure it's the same for elephants. Here we have one climbing up a termite mound. Rebecca in the final control is wondering about the order and care provided to calves, where the firstborn is cared for and panicked over and doted on. The second one not quite so much, and the third one, well, they just let run riot, basically. Oh, here he comes. Look how she's shielding him. Just making sure he walks on the one side of her. She's very comfortable with us, though. That's very sweet. I think you'll find also they all have different personalities. And so I'm sure that calves get... That's not half trunk, is it? So what I mean by that is I'm sure that all of the youngsters get treated differently according to their different personalities. Shall I sneak slightly forward? Are you okay here, Dave? Let me sneak slightly forward. Samuel, I imagine that you have got a very good relationship with your father, and it must be a little bit distressing to see that very few of these mammals... Oh, dear. It must be quite distressing for you to see that none of these mammals have got relationships with their fathers, probably like you have with yours. And Samuel, that's... It's an interesting question as to why that is the case, but basically there's no need. They don't have the same need that humans do for their fathers, because their fathers have other roles. And so they live in a big herd of females and older brothers and sisters, and those older brothers and sisters will do the job that your father does. They will provide the youngsters with the lessons they need, with the mentoring. They'll play with them. Whereas the big bulls, the big old chaps, are wandering around kind of on their own. And you know, Samuel, was quite interesting because pretty much only human beings have fathers that are as attentive, look how sweet he is, that are as attentive as our fathers are. Most other mammals, in fact just about all other mammals, have got pretty bad fathers by human standards, but out here birds often have superb fathers. So he was just showing us how strong he was, and then deciding that perhaps he wasn't quite as strong as he thought he was, so he's gone away now. This is wonderful. Sneak a little bit further forward as the sun starts to warm our faces on this chilly morning. There's another one here. I thought there was another one there, wasn't there? Right, we have 100,000 subscribers. Thank you, everybody. Well done to whoever it was that has become the 100,000th. What a great birthday present for us. This is a slightly larger herd than I thought. Ooh, little one charging, bigger one. I don't want to get too close to them. I think what we have here at the back now is the matriarch. She's got one tusk, and she looks to be the biggest to me. There she is. Let's get a look at her there. I don't think she's particularly perturbed by us, but you can see that she's just holding back slightly, perhaps getting everyone else in front of her. She's also only got half a right ear. It's very interesting. Now in this herd of elephants we've got two small calves and I think one slightly larger one, definitely weaned. An Antoinette, this is probably fairly standard, so you would find a herd of elephants with each female having a youngster, and if she has got a youngster that's still suckling, she will have another one probably 2 years older than that, 2 or 3 years old, 3 or 4 years older than that. They have a calf every, 3.5 years or so. Three and a half to 5 years. And so you'd work out the number of calves in a herd basically from the ratio of adult females to, based on that. Just in a little bit of a sticky situation. We can't move much from here. Lovely sounds and smells. Interesting one, that. To which I don't really know the answer. I think you'd probably, Russ, you'd expect to see calves of the same age in the herds if their estrus cycles synced. So no, I don't think they do. In fact, I'm pretty sure they don't. There are always calves of different ages in a herd, so no, I don't think there is a synchronization of the estrus cycle. I think their estrus cycle is very much a function of their present offspring, and whether they're still suckling or not. It's not regular, based purely on a monthly cycle like with humans. Now we do know that elephants can have twins. And those two calves are exactly the same age as each other. And they're all both hanging around one mother. But I don't think that they're twins. I just thought I'd mention that in case we get asked. It's one of the most common questions. Do elephants have twins, firstly? And then the second question is, do you get albino elephants? I never wondered that myself until I was asked to. There, see the two little ones now having a little play, and one of them is so tired he needs to have a lie down. That is too sweet. Here comes Mum. Little trunks sticking up, smelling what's going on. And as I was saying, the birthing interval is probably about 3.5 to 4 years. So after a little one like this is born, it's about a year old now, the gestation period of 2 years or so, 22 months. So I would imagine that this cow in front of us, given the age of that calf at possibly just under a year, let's call it 10 months old, I'd say she's still got another 12 months or so before she conceives again, moo cow. There's a very angry fellow there. He's chasing the bird. I think he finds he's taking exception to the fork-tailed drongo flying around him. Yes, look at him lifting his trunk to see what it is. And now trying to reach into the tree to grab it. That's very sweet. Look. I'm sure he's trying to reach up to the bird. Now you saw that older cow with her half ear. In fact, she's just off to the left there, Dwarf. She looks a little bit long in the tooth, and Saskia. Her replacement will eventually be picked by the other members of the herd. It's not hereditary, and it will most likely be the next oldest elephant in the herd. I don't think she's that old. I think she looks older than she is because of that torn ear and missing tusk. She's had a bit of a hard life. Possibly in the ganglands. You know, she didn't live in a very salubrious neighborhood. And so it's quite possible that the other large cow, this one here, would take over from her as the matriarch. Okay, I think these chaps are going to head down into some thicker bush, and I'm going to turn around and see if I can't pick up again on Hukumuri's tracks.
Look at what we found, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder if you know or can tell me what droppings or who dung that. You can see them. I'm not too concerned about picking them up with my fingers. They look like cocktail sausages, do they not? And if I break it open, let me just break that one. Inside you can see it's made up of bark, primarily bark. This is the dung of a porcupine. I wouldn't be picking up leopard scat or lion scat, but very easily identified these cocktail sausage-like droppings. And that indeed is a porcupine. And they're not that fresh because they're quite dry. And the porcupine feeds primarily on roots and bark of trees. So it's a vegetarian. It's a large rodent with very big teeth. And I'm going to put those right back where I found them. Not that he's a territorial marker. Oh, so it has been a rather... Okay, well it seems like Ralph's got more interesting things. Let's quickly go to him.
So everybody, I just wanted to show you here, we've got 2 Impala males here, so a couple of rams who are fighting with each other. And even though we're on foot and normally they would run away from us, they're so in this fight with each other that they're not worrying about us. Have a look over there. Have a look over there. See, they're squaring up. They know that we're here, but they're still more worried about each other. And they often give that false alarm call to put the other male off. You see there? Now he goes for the other one. And if we come a little bit forward, we can maybe see them a little bit better through there. See, they don't know if they should be worried about us or fight with the other one. And there they go. And you're still going to hear them locking horns. Let's move forward a little bit. We might still be able to see them through here. So that false alarm call that they give then puts the other male sort of off, because instinctively with that alarm call they need to be looking for predators. So they keep doing that to each other so that the one turns and then they can go in and hit him with the horns. Put him off guard. Seem to have moved down a little bit now. Let's just have a look if we can possibly see them through there. We're looking now back towards Vulture Dam in a westerly direction. So we've sort of done a big circle. We're coming up this way because we've got fresh intelligence that there's been some lions calling near to the dam cam. It's been heard from there, and it's picked up some tracks near Gallagher Pan. So that's where we're heading now. And it looks like these Impala have now moved down into the drainage line. But this time of year is incredible. Rexon was just saying, where's the leopard now? Because, oh, there they are. They're just in front of us here. They're just in front there. They're in the nice light. Might be able to, there, and they're having a full go at each other. So I think we can just stop here. You see how they're watching us? But they're still too concerned with fighting with each other. Don't want to give the other one an inch. They put the head down. This is what it's all about, folks. The rutting season getting into full swing. Still see them there. Always trying to just get the upper hand on the other one. And it's quite incredible because the Impala, what they'll do is now, they'll fight for dominance, and you'll end up then with one being the, listen up. They're locking horns. I'm not sure if you were able to hear that, but quite loud. With their horns now. Now they're sort of back to the Mexican standoff again. So they'll fight for that one position to take over as the dominant male, and the rest will then be in the bachelor herd. And then they'll be vying for dominance again within the bachelor herd, and the one male that's got the group of females, he'll be chasing off all the other males. But he loses condition very fast. So within a few days, up to about a week, he'll be kicked off, because all he's worried about is the females and the other males. And he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink. So he loses condition very quickly. There they go again. Sounds like bashing sticks together. Just try to come down a little bit more. Now, Anna Marie, when we call it rutting, it is basically fighting for females, but it's also fighting for dominance. It's that fighting between the males. That's the rutting season itself. So they start rutting, and once they've established dominance, then the whole sort of breeding cycle continues. There are other animals that do rutting. I'm pretty sure the deer, they also rut. So there are some similarities between antelope and deer. And they're still giving off those false alarm calls, trying to put the other one off. There they are. So yes, there are other animals. The deer will also rut, and that's when you see them doing those classic headlock and head bashing, all these sort of mountain goats, all of that, where they're trying to get that dominance between males. So definitely between different species of antelope and deer, etc. around the world. There's definite rutting, and it's normally coinciding with the shortening of the days. So that normally coincides with an increase in testosterone, and that's what makes them now really want to fight with each other. And once they establish that, then they've got that group of females, and then it really ensures a real mixture of genes. So I think these guys have now headed off down into the drainage line. We're going to continue, see if we can pick up on these lion tracks. While we do that, I think Steve's got a bird to show you near one of the dams.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Ralph. Well, the Impala are going to be rutting non-stop for the next month at least, month and a bit. So we're going to get lots more of that action. But here we have found a very common bird, but not often seen on the camera, with his very waggy tail and its black and white body. I don't know if you can hear him calling there. I don't do it very well. And then black and white, and very easy. A lot of birds that are black and white are in fact called pied, and that is indeed the pied wagtail, walking around there looking for any sorts of aquatic insects that might be hanging around. Just Bex, all things that are black and white are called pied. Piebald stallion, pied magpie shrike, pied butterflies. Black and white is generally referred to as pied. Why exactly? I don't know. But that is just the way it is. We look out there, things that are black and white are generally called pied. Magpie, piebald stallion, I said before. And here indeed we have got a beautiful specimen. And we just stopped here at Treehouse Dam for a quick coffee. It has been extremely cold the last hour, and their hands need a little bit of a defrosting here. So we've stopped for a quick coffee while everyone finds all the action out there. We thought we'd just have a little quiet session next to the dam while we look at some birds. There's a second bird there halfway through. You can see him there, Seb. It looks to me to be a wood sandpiper. The yellow legs. The wood sandpiper and the common sandpiper are the two most common sandpipers we find. Excuse me. Excuse me, there's something in the air. And again, you can see how the sort of niche separation between those two species, although they're probably feeding on very similar aquatic organisms, the sandpiper is able to go a little bit deeper into the water with its feet. So it can essentially feed on a different degree of organism rather than the wagtail that's just walking on the edge there. It's not really getting too wet a feet. And you'll probably see when they get closer to each other now, there might be some form of interaction called interspecific competition, where you have species of, or you have animals of different species that have a competitive sort of threshold. The stronger of the two will always outcompete the weaker, as we see all the time with hyena, lion and leopard. You see how that pied wagtail has gone all the way around the sandpiper so as not to incur the wrath of the bigger bird. Marvelous. These birds will stay here all year. They are not migratory. They stay here feeding on whatever aquatic insects might be around. And because of the influx of organic material into these small dams, there is organic material growing. There are insects and all sorts of things growing in these dams or water holes, and there will be all year round. It's mainly the birds that are here for flying insects that migrate. Yes, Seb, you're doing a marvelous job with the reflections there. You can see it's a very still morning. And just the little shimmers on top of the water from time to time, those are in fact insects doing their thing. Mr. T, I doubt these birds would eat each other's eggs. They're not really that way inclined. They're more of a, what do you say, an insect eater, not predatory. There are a number of bird species out there, namely Burchell's cuckoos, that like to go into the nests of other birds and eat the eggs, but they're more of a predatory bird. The beak is adapted for it. They've got a bit of a hooked beak, as well as some of the shrikes. They're capable of not just cannibalism, but predation. And so you'd have to watch out for them. But aquatic birds like this, I don't think there'd be too much competition from the egg story, just from the feeding sort of area. And that's why when you look at birds, the beak shape, either down, straight or recurved, and leg length is what separates them in how they feed and the way that they feed. So, marvelous morning here at Treehouse Dam with a couple of birds. We had some kuru earlier that disappeared in the background there, but they have just disappeared like that bushbuck did. Invisible. Okay, well, I'm not going to get my fishing rod out here and take off the rest of the day. We're going to continue on our merry way. Let's go over to James, see if he's found another beating heart.
No beating hearts. I have tried to fish in one of these water holes before. Someone was trying to teach me desperately to fly fish. Unfortunately, I did not take to it as the proverbial duck to the water. And that was my only fly fishing experience, actually. In fact, I had one other. It was in a place called Dulstrom, a rather oversubscribed fishing village in the centre of the Highveld, which is the highlands of South Africa, not too far from here, about 300 kilometres as the crow flies. And I think I got my line caught in the reeds behind me on the second cast or so, and that was it. I think I headed on to drink some warming apple juice after that, and that was the end of that. There's a heartbeat, albeit an avian one. That's a very nice picture of the white-crowned shrike. You are a very smart fellow. Looks like he's got all preened and dressed up for this morning's show. And he's sitting up there, of course, because he's exposed to the sun. And puffed out as his feathers are, to trap more air underneath, he still would very much like, or very much enjoy, the sun's first rays on him. I think he's a youngster. And I think that because if you listen to him, he just made a few sort of squawking noises. Isn't he lovely? Pangolin, who is still patiently waiting for the potato bush to be found for her, or him. I'm not sure if pangolin is her or him. You say, what a wild puffball. Well, yes, very puffy and very wild. A wild puffball. Yes, this white-crowned shrike agrees with you, pangolin. He, in his sort of coming into adulthood, thinks to himself, yes, I am a wild puffball. Now, most of the shrike species, of course, are not resident here. This is one of the resident species. The red-backed shrike disappears overseas. And Sushant, I am not aware of any that would go all the way to India, shrike-wise, but I'm pretty sure that you would find the Amur falcon that we get here going over to India. I think you may find some of the kite species going that far, possibly the steppe eagle, and maybe one or two others Palearctic migrants. I think most of them go into Europe, so I don't know how many go as far east as India, but I think you'll find the Amur falcons probably do. It's a great question, that. But I don't think any of the shrikes, maybe the red-backed shrike, but I think he just goes to Europe. He likes to spend his time quaffing fine Chianti in Italy, or perhaps a nice Burgundy in France. I know nothing about wine. I think I've got those two things correct, though. Not sure how many of them go all the way north to Scotland for a real drink. Quite a dim dawn chorus today, couple of doves, but some nice calling of the, what am I listening to here? A couple of blue waxbills and sparrows. Oh, there now he's giving a bit of a yell. What? Oh, no, there's a lapwings. Never mind, David, don't go towards them. Romet, in Kenya we would tend to find a few of the birds that migrate from here flying over Kenya into their northern sort of summer residences. So at various stages during the year you would find the Kenyan species going, or our migratory species flying over Kenya, and some of the Kenyan species flying north. There are far fewer migrants in Kenya because it's pretty much on the equator, which means that the seasons are much less variable. But you will have some that keep going north from there. But essentially, in theory, their seasons are much the same as ours. Well, I mean, in theory, they're pretty much on the equator, so they don't really have seasons. But they are, in the Maro, that we're slightly south of the equator. And so things like the woodland kingfisher will continue north from there into just sub-Saharan Africa. Oh, look at that. That's a beautiful shot. He's mooning us, David. We're being mooned by a white-crowned shrike. Thank you. Thank you very much. And all the other intra-African migrants, the cuckoos, would go just north of Kenya into the Sahel and into the, possibly a little bit further west towards Senegal and that sort of thing. But I don't know of any species that would leave here and go and live in Kenya. Right, I think much more attractive than the backside of that shrike is a dwarf mongoose with the stivovo.
Yes, indeed. Look at what we found. And look at that one in the middle of the picture. He's all stretched out with legs out, hoping someone will groom him. And this is why dwarf mongoose burrows like this one in the winter months are quite a good indicator of direction, because they come out here in the morning for the morning sun, just like we were doing at the dam with our coffee. And they'll have their ablutions and their grooming, and you'll find an accumulation of dung piles on the look at that one, on the eastern side of these mounds, because they come out in the morning to warm themselves before they can continue with the day, because a very small animal like that is very cold on a cold morning such as this one. So finding a used mongoose house with a pile on one side is a very good indicator of direction. So I hope that will help you in the future if you do get lost out in the African wilderness. And they are very inquisitive, these guys. This is the time of morning where they do a lot of their aloe grooming. And they do it outside of the hole as well, because you don't want to sort of take all your ticks and fleas and mites out in your bed. Do it outside. And it's a good time for social gatherings and communication and discussing the dreams they might have had, or the scorpion prize you're going to have this day, or maybe some of the insects you might be feeding on. There we go. You see the guys at the bottom are in sort of like a row of three. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. There we go. Some reciprocal grooming on the neck there. Very important for social animals to have these greeting ceremonies, these grooming ceremonies. And also you can see that they're still quite cold as they're stretching out and keeping their bodies nicely snuggled together. You can see they're not too concerned with us, but that one on the bottom right of the screen is looking a little mangy. The fur is looking a little bit unkept. Or is that just a blade of grass in the way, Seb? No, I think it's the fur. Needs a little bit more of a groom. Maybe it's a lower ranking individual that's not getting as much love as it would like. But you can see how they've all kind of got their back to the sun, trying to get as warm as they possibly can. Cecilia, most mongooses have got sort of an alpha male and female pair within the group, and there'll be a breeding amongst them. And how they determine the alpha and the alpha male and female is they have a groom-off. And essentially what a groom-off is two individuals, like Seb and myself, will come together and we'll start grooming each other. And the first person to stop grooming loses. So the person who grooms till the end is the winner. And that is a very important element of mongoose society, is being able to groom your fellow. Because keeping yourself free of ticks, I believe so. Both male and female do it, Bex, but I can double check if male and female. But it's females versus females and males versus males. I don't have my animal behavior guide with me here. But definitely the alpha will be the top groomer. And I'm assuming that it is between male and female. But you can see that they are very cold. There's not even much grooming going on at the moment. They're looking very, very lethargic. Normally we see dwarf mongoose, they're moving quite rapidly around. Beautiful. So probably one of a number of sort of whole houses that they might have, nests, and they move between them depending on the season, depending on the day, depending where they might be foraging, also depending on the amount of infestations of mites and fleas that might have accumulated within the nest. You probably all, those of you who got dogs and cats back home, you know how you need to wash the blankets from time to time or de-flea the area. As with furry bodies like that, it's impossible not to pick up parasites as you go, and that is why the grooming is so important in their social behavior. Sienna, it's hard to say how long they'll stay in one den for. Like I said, it's all got to do with infestations of ticks and parasites. You can see the one on the bottom of the screen having a proper scratch there. When it gets infested with parasites, they have to leave. But it can be from a few days to a few weeks, I would say. And obviously they need to have a number of these in case they get caught out foraging at night and they need to get back to the closest sort of safety point. So I don't think it's a fixed sort of place. They will move between them. And obviously if they come back to a nest site and it's been occupied by some other critter, then they might think twice about moving in. And a critter, I'm talking about something like a very big, dangerous snake. But a family of mongoose are generally quite adept at taking care of venomous snakes. A big python might be a bit of a problem, but in numbers, I think they have the opportunity to chase them away, or if not kill them and eat them. They are, after all, the smallest carnivore that we have here in the savanna biome, and they'll feed on anything from scorpions to skinks to snakes, as well as a lot of insects and berries and fruit. So an animal that is not sitting in the sun keeping warm. Ralph Kirsten is walking through the long grass. Let's see how wet his shoes are.
Yes, everyone, we're not just walking through the long grass. We're in the thick of it here. and we're still looking for cats, but as I said, still moving around, just checking everything that's out here in the bush. That's the wonders of being on a bushwalk. Now, I just wanted to indicate to you a little bit here. James has been watching some elephants early this morning. And well, we've got an area here where the elephants would have been quite a long time ago, and the signs are here that they've been pushing trees over, they've been breaking smaller trees as well, and this nice good indication once Senzo comes all the way in here. This is a knobthorn that's been pulled down, possibly for the nice juicy leaves, and also maybe for the flowers, the white flowers that they get. The elephants love to eat that. But when knobthorns are very small, this is what gives them the name knobthorns, because of these wonderful knobs that grow on the stem, and it's on the younger ones because it's used for protection. Well, it obviously wasn't good enough to protect itself against elephant, but this has been pulled down now. That's just a nice way of seeing it. And over here, once again, we've got some of this lovely bracket fungus that grows on dead or bark that's not living anymore. So they're lovely, nice stuff that we often use to start fires. We've also got some lichen in between. So there's all sorts. There's some lichen there. And I know Steve has been chatting about it on the recent drives. That's a symbiosis between algae and a fungus. The fungus supplying the substrate, and the algae then producing food through chlorophyll and the process of photosynthesis. A very interesting relationship that, but that's a talk that we could go on for hours with. I want to just show you something else here as well. I know Steve that was talking about the mongoose and how they show you direction. Well, I'm not going to be... Lichen we can use to show you direction as well. It normally grows on the southern side of trees and rocks, obviously because that's on the cooler side, it would definitely be able to show you a little bit of that. And also termite mounds. The thing is, with termite mounds, a lot of these termites, the reason they're making this mound is because... it's with that fungus underneath the ground. So along the same lines as we've got with the fungus growing on the tree there, the fungus that these termites are producing is assisting them in breaking down cellulose that they cannot digest coming from the grass. But when they work on this termite mound is normally at night, because they don't have any pigment in their skin. So they're very susceptible to sunburn, and they get harmed by the sun. So they would work on these termite mounds at night, generally. Or they would build some, they work on the inside during the day, but on the outside, if there's any damage or they want to get it growing up quite a lot more, then it's worked on at night. So you think they work on it at night and they use saliva and soil. That's all that this is literally termite saliva and soil. And working on that during the evening, during the night, during those cold hours, it makes it that... this termite mound will obviously, in the morning, the first light will be hitting on the southeastern side. So it's going to lean over towards a northwesterly direction. And if you look at termite mounds in general, they will all be leaning over in a northwesterly direction. And the Bushmen used to use that as a very good way to navigate through the bush. This is obviously quite a small one, so a bit difficult to see the way that it's leaning, but you get like the ones in Namibia that are very tall and they start leaning over all in a particular direction. So that's very interesting. Now, I know that there was a question from Carol, but I was mid-sentence there. I'm just going to ask them to repeat that for me, and I'll give you your answer, Carol, as we walk through the bush. Carol, obviously the termites, to answer your question, the termites are the ones that are opening and closing different pores to keep it at an optimum temperature for that fungus. So if the termites aren't there, it's not going to be keeping that normally between 32 and 36 degrees optimum temperature for the fungus. So generally, if it becomes extinct, it then isn't as hot and warm as it would be if the termites were there. And we often use it as a nice little heater in winter. You can go and sit on that and make your bum nice and warm when it's very cold in those early morning winters. So it's actually a very interesting termite mounds. We could carry on for hours with those living organisms. We're starting to walk through the long grass here. Senzo just negotiating it. So, everyone, we've heard some alarm calls up ahead. We'll see if we can follow up on that. Maybe it's our leopard, maybe it's some lions. We'll let you know shortly. But while we do that, let's head on over to James, who, I forgot what he's doing, but I'm sure it's exciting.
Well, I forgot what I'm doing as well, clearly, because we had an Impala here. It lost its sense of courage and disappeared into the bushes, as did another Impala that we had, as did a flock of helmet shrikes. No courage at all, just disappeared. And so we continue on our fairly fruitless search for anything with a heartbeat at this stage. See no further useful tracks. Oh, I wanted to say, on Buffalo's Hook, I don't know if anyone's told you this, but there's a female with 2 little cubs, and we don't know her, of course. Don't know who she is, and she's got 2 youngsters. And while she's quite skittish, apparently the youngsters are not, and they've been seen with Djuma, the big male leopard from the north, from time to time. So obviously he has produced offspring. Congratulations to him. And so nice to know that we don't house the only leopards here at Djuma. Buffalo's Hook has them. It's reserved to the north of us. Who knows what we'd find if we were driving around there permanently. It'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? There's a bird on the road, David. Astonishing. Look at that. It is poised. Crested francolin. It looks like a guard outside some sort of royal palace, standing to attention. Oh, now it's just doing a bit of yoga. See that, David? Doing a bit of yoga there. That's called the francolin pose, actually. A francolin can't do the salute to the sun, I don't think, because they're unable to rest on their wings, you see. This one might have a hangover. It looks like it's walking very ponderously and slowly. You can see life is rather trying for it. Or it's just had a spat with its spouse. Yes, I think that's what it is. That's the male, obviously, to the right. The female to the left is now refusing to talk to him. You can see exactly what's happening here. Yes, but I didn't mean... Well, I don't want to know. Don't talk to me. I'm going over here. Well, I'll just clean myself here and... Oh, itchy ear. Come on, let's make up. I told you I don't want to. Go away. Go away. All right, I'll just feed here. Yes, he's in for a long day, that fellow. See how he pretends not to be looking at her when she turns round. But slowly he will walk behind her until she eventually relents. Ooh, she's knocking over a little ant pile there, obviously hoping for its builders for breakfast. Oh, are we getting... I've been pulled out, sorry. I have been pulled out. That's blaming fate for my incompetence. Okay, I'm plugged back in. Now let's look at those legs there. And Holly, those are not knees you're looking at. Those are, I'm assuming that you're looking at the backward bending joint on the back leg there. That is the tarsal joint. It's called a tarsal joint. It's the equivalent of your ankle. And so there isn't really a special way of describing it. It bends exactly the same as yours on something like a what's it called? A gymnasium, yes, or African harrier hawk. It bends both ways. It's like having an ankle joint that bends both ways. The knee joint, or the equivalent of the knee joint, is up inside, just sort of just above where the leg emerges from the body. And that bends in the same way that yours does. I haven't heard any special term for how or what it's called. But the joint, I think, is called the intertarsus. Yes. Good. It's warming up a bit, David. I think I might take my scarf off. Sure. Let me cast it aside. On we go. We'll head down towards Treehouse Waterhole now, see what's going on there. I'm driving through the old haunt of shadow, and I must confess that I think her days are up. I have not heard anything about her or not Barbara for a very long time, and so I think we need to probably start facing the worst at the moment. Alright, let's go across to Steve. I've got no idea what he's doing, where he's going. He said he was going to Treehouse Dam. The next thing I heard, he was having coffee at Buffelshoek Dam, so who knows what he's doing.
Well, we already had the coffee, and we've moved on from there. We checked a little bit of the southern boundary, had some old lion tracks, it seemed, that crossed. There's probably the Unkahumas from the other day, and then there was a buffalo track or two. So many rhino tracks around, and we spotted some elephants somewhere here. We're just seeing if we can find them. I'm a little bit too short in my seat to have seen them, but Seb spotted them, and we right on our western sort of section, and I'd love to show you some elephants. It's been way too long since we've seen any. Whereabouts, Seb? Still further up? Far behind. Oh, that way. Okay, well it appears as if we've passed where they were. Okay, well let's go over to Ralph, who's got something very cool and very strong.
Now, everyone, look at this. This is a little armored darkling beetle. Well, it's not very little. He's moving quite slowly. Well, I say him, it's probably a female because of the size, and moving quite slowly because, remember, they are ectothermic, so they get their heat from outside sources. Still quite cold this morning, so probably not having too much energy. You see those lovely ridges on the shell? This talky beetle, the Bernard family, morning, and with those ridges, they actually help to funnel water down into the mouth of the beetle itself. So they're called talky beetles because they use the bottom of the abdomen, and they tap on the ground like this in a sort of mating call. The little female will do that, and the male will do it as well, and then that's how they sort of come together. And you can sometimes, I think she's a little bit, as I say, not having enough energy, and you can sometimes, by tapping your finger on the ground, you can get them to call back to you as well. Now, these little insects or beetles like this, they can get eaten by quite a few different reptiles, but they do have a very hard exoskeleton, so not very easy to break that outer shell. But once you do get through that, there's a wonderful, juicy food on the inside. And see how it moves along almost like a tank, and very clear tracks as well that you can see from them. Insects are 3, that's what it would indicate as well. So, very interesting, isn't that? So that's wonderful. See, it's not all about. I'm still on the track of it and around here as well. But these, for me, are some of the little lines of the line this one. But anyway, okay. We in one. I think the signal's not that great.
Sorry about that, folks. It appears Ralph is in a little bit of a dead spot. Don't worry, we're on top of the hill at the moment, so we should have a relatively good signal. One thing that, to comment on what Ralph said, and something I've noticed over the years with termite mounds, is you only really find them facing north when they're in a very clay-rich area. And here we have got a very sandy granitic soil, so I find the termite mounds here don't react the same way. And look who we've found in the middle of the wilderness. Looks like I'm going to have to make way.
Now, I would like you to explain to me how your route this morning went from, your route was going to be Zoe's Treehouse Dam, and then I heard you were having coffee at Buffelshoek Dam.
We were at Treehouse Dam with coffee, James.
Treehouse Dam with coffee.
We were indeed. Okay. I think the communications are an error from the other side.
Probably my fault.
Okay.
Certainly I'll be blamed. Where are you going now?
We're going to turn around and head down to Chitwa in a few moments.
Right.
We just thought we'd give it one last effort.
Which 3 inches of the property were you going to leave to me to drive in?
Okay, well, you can go to Buffelshoek Dam.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, we haven't been there.
Have a coffee there.
We haven't been to Buffelshoek, but we'll make a little bit of way. Left hand, right hand down as we move out of the way. You might get some elephants on the way down that I didn't see. Enjoy. So, to add to my termite mound story, I find in places like Botswana and other places in the Kruger where there's a lot of clay in the soil, the termite mounds most certainly will bend north, because the termites do a lot of their activity at night, and the moist clay that they develop to build a structure as the sun comes up, because in the southern hemisphere our sun stays in the north of us and it ends up drying the clay. If you've ever done pottery before, you notice when clay dries, it shrinks and it ends up pulling the termite mound towards the sun. Here, for example, our termite mounds are made up of very, very coarse sand, and sand doesn't have a lot of clay in it, so it doesn't tend to bend very well. So I'd put it hard to Ralph to see if he can find one that points north in this area. I don't think the soil allows for it, but it is something to pay attention to. But you can see the color of it. It's a very sort of light color derived from sandy granitic soil, and you'd be very hard pressed to find one with a dominating clay layer that bends any direction. And it's also why the termite mounds here in the Sabi sands, or in this area particularly, are so enormous, because the bricks which they use to build the termite mounds in the form of sand are much larger than when they build them out of clay, because the clay particles are very, very small, so the bricks are smaller, so the termite mounds don't get as big. I hope that explains some things. So we are going to probably turn around soon at one of the next roads and try and not bump into James again, and then head down towards Chitwa, where we might find a beautiful leopard, or we might not. We're not sure. We have no idea. I think James was just a bit jealous there that he didn't have coffee. It's all in the planning, Mr. Henry. It's all in the planning. We've got nuts and fruit and coffee.
We are organized.
Organized, Seb says. I was a Boy Scout in my day, so you have to be, the Boy Scout motto is to be prepared. Always be prepared. If you look inside of my backpack, I am prepared for almost anything. So we are right on top of the Katina now. Well, Bex, if it snows, I will have made a very bad judgment and not brought my snowshoes. So if it snows, I won't know what to do, except I'd probably have a lot of fun for a little while until my toes freeze. I'll enjoy it initially. There'll definitely be a snowball fight that I will win, because I'm very good at making snowballs. The first time I went to France, I went with a French family that were guests of mine at Singita, and the daughter, I think, was 15 and the son was 11, and they had a friend who was also 11, and they decided to show me how to snowball fight. And I warned them that I know how to play cricket and I know how to throw with both hands, but they ganged up on me nonetheless, and needless to say, I won that victory. I won that fight. I was a fair bit older than them though, but there were 3 of them. 3, and they picked on me. South African who'd never been in the snow before in my life. But I quickly learned how to manufacture the balls and then just to throw them very fast with both hands, and yes, they didn't pick another fight with me, those 3. Okay, well, it seems as James has spotted something with a heartbeat. Let's quickly go to him.
I have, but it's flown away. It was a gymnogene, and it was raiding a nest. Let me just get the other side of the sun here, and we might get a picture of the starling that was shouting at it. I think there's a starling's nest in this dead knobthorn tree here. And I think that the nasty gymnogene was trying to stick its double-jointed intertarsals into the hole. Wow, it's a lovely day. I don't know if anybody else gets the same feeling that I do when I hear an aeroplane flying in the distance, but it makes me feel very at peace for some reason. Reminds me of sort of Sunday afternoons, I don't know why. Possibly there's some memory deep in the recesses of my small brain that comes from when I was small. Tracks of baboons. It's quite nice actually. Maybe we'll find them at the Waterhole. The baboons arrived back in camp yesterday. Very exciting. A little raiding party of 3 gangsters disturbed my workings yesterday morning, and I was forced to chase them from the kitchen and then chase them from my room. Very unpleasant of them. Now, one of our more recent characters, and dare we call it this a secondary character, is this couple of vultures. And they are winter breeders, as I've told you before. And so we look forward to the emergence of a very pretty little sort of downy covered head. Vulture looks best the day it's born. From then on it's downhill, I'm afraid. A couple of people I know like that too. It's not their fault. James Richard, there you are. You were hoping to see them. There you find one of them. The other one obviously out on the hunt. Don't think this is a single parent. But otherwise not being particularly enthusiastic about life this morning. Now, where I first started training, there was, at Pinder, the first thing I was told when I got there was that there are 9 endemic species here. Now, endemic, of course, means particular to an area. Normally quite a small area. Here comes the other vulture, with more nesting material. Just been to IKEA, got himself a little bit of furniture. Very nice. Oh, maybe it wasn't IKEA. Looks like it was an antique shop. Very nice. They're obviously quite wealthy vultures. Look at that. Isn't that marvellous? Sorry, Rainier, I was trying to tell you about endemic species, and you want to know if there are any endemic species in southern Africa? Absolutely there are. In fact, I will tell you exactly how many. I think my bird book tells me that. Endemic species, page 10. Here we go. Endemic species. Naturally, it doesn't just give me a number. Oh, no, it does. There are 99 endemics in the southern African subregion and 72 near endemics, in other words, species whose distribution extends just beyond southern Africa. So if we just take a random page, there's a map of southern Africa, which includes Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, or most of Mozambique, and South Africa. There we go. And that is southern Africa, and there are 99 endemic bird species there. It's quite nice. Many of them, of course, will be seabirds found only in the Cape. Good. Excellent. One last look at the vultures, and then we'll head on. And so what we have there, of course, is the return with furniture, most likely the male shamsun. The female stays at home most of the time and does most of the incubating, but the male will also do some incubating, because I don't know that they actually feed each other during the incubation process, so I think they have to feed themselves. So while one is away scoffing on a rotting carcass, the other will be sitting on the eggies. I think it's 2 eggies. Good. Okay, I'm going to go down towards the waterhole. I believe Ralph has managed to find himself a compass.
Everyone, I did do a little bit of finding direction in the bush the other day using that particular watch method. Now, before I get to the termite mound, let's indicate exactly where north is. Now, it's just before 8 o'clock, so I don't even have a watch on, but I know that the time is just before 8. And now we know how to find direction using the sun. Remember, pointing the 12 at the sun. So what I'm going to be doing is pretending that I have a watch on, and I can even do it that way, even with pretend watch. So, and because we know where 8 o'clock is, it's just before 9 o'clock. So it would be pointing pretty much there, and we've got our 12 now towards the sun, and right in the middle is pretty much where north is. So north is pretty much in that direction there. Now, if we look at this termite mound, okay, this is a reasonably small one, so obviously, like the ones that we get in Namibia, they're much taller and they're much easier to see. You can see that this side here has started to fall over a little bit, and it's been dried much more on this side of this termite mound. So it is starting to lean over ever so slightly because of the, it's quite a stout termite mound. However, it is still leaning over in a northerly direction. So absolutely, but like I said, sometimes you need to just check with a few different termite mounds, because one particular termite mound might be leaning over in a particular direction because of some factors in that particular area. So you look at them in general. If I had to see 3 or 4 termite mounds leaning over like this, we'd know that north is there, and it has been confirmed. So wonderful. There you go, Steve. There's your answer. And we have a northerly facing termite mound, but quite difficult to find any of these tall ones here in this particular area. The soil's a little bit different, and some of the species of termite are different as well. Now we are back on the road, and the reason we're on the road is because Hukumuri has been walking along the road, and we do have a feeling that he's possibly looking for Shudulu. So that's the reason we're on the track, we're on the trail, right behind Shudulu, hopefully, and as well as Hukumuri. And the reason we know it's Hukumuri is because Rexon has just showed me now this morning. I want to show you a nice track of him. Once we find it just up ahead here, it's got a particular on his. It looks like the toe just off of the left foot, but one of the front toes always shows his claw in the track. And I'm hoping that we can pick up one over here that I can show you. Rex is head on ahead, and he's already found the trail up front there. So we've got a nice track over here, but unfortunately that exact mark that we're talking about is not evident, but it's like that little mark there. So it's very, very nondescript. This is when you get very close into detail, you can start to tell individual tracks of a leopard. You have very clear 3 lobes on the proximal pad, and this looks like a back foot, so a little bit more elongated. And if we look at the size of it, normally males are pretty much similar length as they are wide. See there, it's a little bit off, but with a female it would be quite a lot longer than it is wide. So that's one of the ways of sexing, just from a track as well. So that's very nice. So as I say, we're on the trail here, and Hukumuri possibly be spotted, but Rexon says that he is quite nervous when you walk him on foot. So we're going to try and catch up, see if we can get a little bit closer, but in the meantime let's head on over to Steve, who I'm not sure what he's on the trail of, but I'm sure it's very exciting.
Well, at the moment, not too much. Trying, number one, to avoid James. That's be the first prize. And we're probably going to slowly head down towards Chitwa. Hearing reports of far in the north that they've managed to find some lions, but we are going to go down to Chitwa because the lions are definitely not on Djuma at the moment. So let's go down and see if we have any luck with anything with spots. Seb would like to see some spots. I don't mind just doing trees and birds, but I would like to make him happy as well. Hey, Sebastian? Yes, please, he says. He doesn't want any birds this morning, but you know me, I can't help myself. When we find some birds, I will deliberately stop, and hopefully Seb will frame them for me. Seb's normally pretty good with me and the birding. Wildebeest, sometimes he gets a bit frustrated. He wants to see leopards. No, I don't want to see birds. Let's see cats. But the beautiful thing about birds, I know there's a lot of people out there still learning, trying to get into it. I know Janine on Twitter, she said she's trying to get into the birding, but she's struggling. You need to just keep going. Once you get past 10, 15 birds and you start being able to identify sort of the shape of the beak, the size of the bird, you start getting a bit of confidence. You're like, oh, that kind of looks like. Well, we're not going to find any spots, but we're going to find some stripes. And there is a beautiful zebra. He was up on the little termite mound there, feeding on the grass vegetation. Some Franklin's alarm calling just over here. Just have a little look. You just keep watching the zebra owl. Has disappeared. They definitely sound like they're alarm calling. It wasn't a very vocal alarm call. They made a call and then they kind of slowed down a bit. See, Seb, birds can attract you to things of interest. Let's just move up here a bit and have a look and see if there is anything further. We're going to just listen for a few moments and hear if the alarm call continues. So my hyena's calling off far in the distance. Crested barbets. One just landed on that branch there. This marula with the little stub, Sabi, the one in the middle of frame. Yeah. It's just on the tip of that little broken branch. Look at that, eh? How easy was it for me to get Seb to frame on a bird? Fantastic. So please, folks, send your questions and comments through to #SafariLive. There goes the barbet. He's landed on the middle of that tree now. And off he goes again. There's a whole bird party. I saw some fork-tailed drongos, some helmet shrikes, some starlings. You can hear Cape turtle dove. You hear the chin spot batters. Well, I think the Franklins might have just got a bit of a spook from something. They're not calling anymore. They normally will persist that for a while. Hear the black-headed oriole. That is me doing the call. Cheeky Geeky Beth, fantastic question. How many bird species in the area are monogamous? Well, in the Greater Kruger National Park, there's about 470 species of bird. You know, just in the middle there, said that Barula, has he flown? Oh, there he's gone. He just had a lilac-breasted roller going there. Well, a lot of them, a majority of the bird species are monogamous. I will tell you the ones that are not. The three wider species we can find. I suppose the cuckoos, and there's about 6 of them. The honey guides, 2-3 species of honey guide. Probably about 20-25 species are not monogamous. But then what you must understand about monogamy in birds is that it doesn't necessarily mean that they will mate for life. For example, let's talk about the hornbills being monogamous, but what will happen is that, yes, that male might impress the female for one season, but next season he has to prove his worth once again. If he wasn't a good provider while she was in her whole nest in the tree cavity, molting and doing all the work of sort of incubation, then next season she'll be like, well, sorry sir, you weren't good enough. I'm going to look for someone who's better at catching grasshoppers than you. So when you look at the larger species, for example, the large raptors, the large storks, herons, those birds and geese, they will generally be monogamous for an extended period of life, if not their entire life. But a lot of the smaller bird species can actually be semi-monogamous even in the season, with little cheeky mating sessions on the side. So monogamy is probably 50% of the population, and then there's lots of loose bonds in between. But I can't tell you an exact number, to be honest, but I would say 50% would be an accurate number of monogamous bird species behavior, and then lots of others in between, kind of flitting between the two. Polygamy, where the male has more than one female, we find that in widers and indigo birds. Polyandry, when the female has more than one mate. The most common, here we got the nice zebras, the most common species for that we talk about is the African jacana and the painted snipe. And in the jacana, it is the male that does all of the child rearing and looking after. And in the snipe, the female looks prettier than the male. You can hear a black-crowned chagra. You can see the mongoose in the background there. They're also on the eastern side of this little termite mound. And their dung droppings accumulation will give us that indication of direction. So the zebra are in. We've got a few zebra around the property the last few days, and I think they're really enjoying the long grass that is around. Lots of the buffalo grass that we find, the panicum maximum. They enjoy the long, tall grass. They're able to munch it down because they've got teeth in the top of their mouth. And they actually open up this grazing potential for other animals, namely wildebeest. The buffalo and zebra would have a very similar sort of feeding strategy, both enjoying nice, long, palatable species of grass. The zebra being able to feed on less quality. They do much better in the dry season when there's not as much moisture in the vegetation. And as the name of lots of these species, hindgut fermenters, they feed on twice as much food as the ruminants do, and they are able to obviously maintain good condition through dry periods. Nice to have zebra back on the area. And tracks of those male lions. So I think the zebra are breathing a sigh of relief after spending the evening in the open areas of quarantine. Now, what we're seeing is they come into quarantine at night and then they slowly feed and go all the way out south again and then come back in again. It's quite incredible what I'm seeing with regards to tracks. And on game drive 2 mornings ago, I think it was, we followed them all the way down this road now, which is called Weaver's Nest, down to our southern boundary. Here, yes indeed, each zebra has apparently got a very unique stripe pattern, a unique signature. And when a female zebra gives birth, she gives birth away from the herd, and her imprint, she imprints herself, the stripe pattern she has, and her baby's stripe pattern. They imprint themselves on each other so they can recognize each other in the mix or the dazzle of the herd. Almost like our fingerprints. They all look very similar to us, but they are quite unique. So, talking about monogamous birds, let's go over to James, who has a species just like that.
Why am I a monogamous bird? I don't understand that link. I hopefully will be nominally monogamous at some stage, but I mean, to call me a bird is just, I don't think that's very fair at all. Anyway, here we have some Egyptian geese. You've met them before. This couple doesn't seem to have done very well at breeding this year. Oh, Saskia, we could talk about this subject for the rest of time. You were asking why it is that why there are so many more monogamous birds than there are mammals. Well, Saskia, in general, because it makes sense for them to be monogamous. That's a stupid answer, I suppose, but it's true. So basically what happens is that in monogamous birds, it makes more sense for them to stay together because they both play a much greater role in parental care. And so in order to maintain the family and make sure that the youngsters make it to adulthood, they stay together. Now, very few mammals have a social system that is similar. And so let's take lions, for example. Lions are not monogamous. They live in prides, obviously, because a pride is a much better security arrangement for the babies, as are the marauding males, making sure that other marauding males don't come into the pride territory or into the male territory. So that's why lions aren't monogamous. Things like, let's take chimpanzees, for example, which are extremely non-monogamous. They apparently believe in sort of hippie-free love to the nth degree. Everyone does it with everyone else all the time. Now, they have evolved that way, possibly, well, we think they've evolved